SportsNation is presented by Toyota.
On July 6 of 2009, ESPN had launched a brand new show starring radio host and star at the network Colin Cowherd, and paired him with the newly acquired from the Yes Network Michelle Beadle, who was coming to ESPN for this show. It originally was supposed to be Colin Cowherd's show, but him and Michelle Beadle had such good chemistry, and the show rapidly took off, and its first of a kind interactive social media based sports television show. SportsNation was one of a kind, and this era of SportsNation from 2012 might have not lasted very long, but I feel like its impact and what it accomplished was something that we will never see again. But during its run, they rose to the top of ESPN, and it was a first of its kind show designed for a younger audience, the 12 to 25 age range. Now, it was not a kid's show, but it definitely was designed to get the younger audience. And if you were too young to remember this show, I honestly feel bad for you. But maybe I can kind of help you live vicariously through me and take you back and understand how awesome this show was. This was my favorite show as a kid, and I was actually able to see the show live when they came to the Super Bowl in Indianapolis in 2012. And I actually still have my SportsNation hat, and I still have my shirt, and yeah, I've got Colin Cowherd and Michelle Beadle's autographs still, and I also have some props from the show. I don't know why I kept all of this stuff. Now, I would also like to mention, it was the only sports show I could get my sister to actually want to watch with me. Maybe that's the reason I loved it so much, because it was kind of aimed towards me and my friends. But it felt like the one show that kind of gave national spotlight to the sports fans, wanted to go viral, and going viral actually meant something. You could submit your own clips into the show, it would actually start off with them, and it felt like we finally had a sports show that was aimed at my demographic at the time, which is something that ESPN had really struggled to capture in the past. The show's creator, Jamie Horowitz, had said that that 12 to 25 age range was something that ESPN really struggled to bring in, and SportsNation was finally the perfect answer. Now, in today's era, people just get on social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, and that's where they get a lot of their entertainment from when it comes to sports. Heck, you might even know these SportsNation social media accounts, but never have known that there was an actual show behind the name. But SportsNation was really the first show, and honestly, maybe the only show. Felt like it was all of that wrapped into one. So today, I'm going to go back in time and take you into what made SportsNation unique. Its impact, and some of the things they did were one of a kind, and I really hope you enjoy this journey. So you're probably asking yourself, what made SportsNation that special where it deserves a video about it? Well, let's talk about what made the show unique. Now, I first off want to say it was kind of hard finding archived footage from the show, especially on YouTube. While trying to find clips to show you guys what SportsNation was like back in the day, I was able to find a few things, but what I mostly found were people filming their intros that they wanted to be seen on the show. That was something that SportsNation would start off every show with, was some sort of trick shot video that you could submit into the show. And while I was doing this, I stumbled across just a YouTube video, nothing too crazy, and it had one comment, and I looked at the comment, and it was the Dude Perfect account. Commented on this video 12 years ago. Heck, Kyle didn't even respond to it. Could you imagine that? That just goes to show what this show meant back in the day. I'm sure that this show actually had a big impact on Dude Perfect. I don't know if they've ever said that before. It's just something I stumbled upon while doing research for this video, but there's plenty of other things that made this show so unique. It was how interactive it was. Like I just mentioned, you could submit your own clips into the show, but there was another thing that they did with the show, which was the polling that they did. This might bring a lot of nostalgia back for you. Back in the day, ESPN.com was way more interactive than it is now, especially the SportsNation section. Now, I couldn't find a lot of videos on this, but I found some pictures that could kind of help you understand it. And every single day, they had new interactive polls that you would fill out. And it could be anything. It could be who you thought was going to win that weekend. It could be who you thought was a better player. Or it could be something random like, are you afraid of wild gorillas? But it showed all across the United States what state voted on what and the percentage. I remember whenever we went to the school library or computer lab, me and my friends would fill these out and talk about them all the time. And every single day on the show, they would go through the polls that everybody filled out and talk about them. And you know, social media now, you can get instant access to anything and people can ask questions to anybody, and way easier to communicate than it was then. These polls, it might seem crazy to say, this really was like the first mass way of gathering data and getting people's opinions. It sounds so silly to look at now. These polls really were monumental. So it was really an interactive based show because you would fill them out during the day at school and then get home, and the show would start around 3 to 4 Eastern time. So it was the perfect show that came out exactly when I got out of school. Now, there are even more things that made this show unique, like the fact that it had a live studio audience.
Hello, Nation. I'm Ryan Lucillo. That's Michelle Beadle. This is SportsNation.
Yes, that was Ryan Russillo back when he had hair. I'm telling you, Prime ESPN was the greatest thing on earth back in the day. But the show, it was a first of its kind thing. I think it was the only sports show that had a live studio audience at the time. And you know, we've seen sports shows have live audiences before, especially when they travel to certain locations. But this was a live audience at the Bristol studio in Connecticut, which was a first of its kind thing, and I think it was the only sports show that did that. Another thing that they did was their Madden cover reveals. See, back in the day, the Madden cover reveal used to be a big deal. And they used to run a bracket system where the fans could actually vote on who got the cover of Madden. And the Madden 2012 and 2013 covers were done through SportsNation/ESPN. Now, they did a huge bracket reveal show, and they revealed both the Madden 12 and Madden 13 covers on the show. And I want to reiterate, this was a big deal at the time. But the show did all sorts of other things, like they brought on a bunch of celebrity guests. And this was a time where ESPN, they would bring a celebrity into their Bristol studio for the whole day, and they would go on everything from Mike and Mike to the Morning to the Late Sports Center, and they would go on all the other shows in between. So you would get a nice mix of random people just showing up on SportsNation, and it really was just a lot of fun. But all good things must come to an end, and that brings us to 2012, because in June of 2012, Michelle Beadle left SportsNation. She was ultimately replaced by Carissa Thompson, and I honestly thought that Carissa and Colin were really good together. I liked the dynamic of the show still, and I honestly didn't think that it missed a beat. But in September of 2012, Colin announced that he was going to leave the show in December, and the main reason why was to focus on radio and his radio show, but also because they wanted to move SportsNation to Los Angeles, and he didn't want to move there, which is kind of funny because that's ultimately why he left ESPN in 2015, was he wanted to get out of Connecticut. So in 2013, Carissa Thompson was joined by Marcellus Wiley, who was based in LA, and the show took on a new form. But then Carissa left and was replaced by Max Kellerman, who he and Wiley worked together on their radio show. But it gets even more chaotic because they were doing the show for about a year, and then in March of 2014, Michelle Beadle, almost 2 years after leaving, came back to ESPN and joined the show. And the show had success. They actually had a massive renaissance, and I honestly thought that the 2014 through 2016 era of SportsNation was pretty good. It obviously wasn't the same with Colin on the show, but I actually thought that Michelle Beadle, Max Kellerman, and Marcellus Wiley had a good thing going, and it felt like there was finally some consistency with the show again. But consistency was a rare thing with SportsNation, because in July of 2016, Max Kellerman announced that he was going to be leaving to do First Take with Stephen A. Smith since Skip Bayless left for Fox. So it was just Beadle and Marcellus. And that lasted until February of 2018, when Michelle would once again leave the show to join the new morning show Get Up after Mike and Mike had split up. And now Carrie Champion, the former First Take moderator, took over for Michelle, and then everything went crashing down in July of 2018 when Marcellus left SportsNation, and basically they forced the show off the air in August of 2018. However, they did revive the show in 2021 with ESPN Plus, which I honestly did not know about because they never really promoted it very much. And then that cast all left, and they turned over SportsNation to Jordan and Shay Cornett, and I'm pretty sure Jordan was let go recently by ESPN, and I have no idea if the show is still active on ESPN Plus. So that's the complicated history behind SportsNation. It has had a very chaotic history with a lot of ups and downs and a lot of uncertainty. ESPN really never knew what to do exactly with SportsNation, but what they did do is they took over their social medias, and really in the rise of the social media era that began in 2012, their Twitter, Instagram, and other social media accounts are what they primarily focused on. And that's why you saw tweets back in the day like, who would win between the 2015 Kentucky Wildcats and the 98 Bulls? That's a classic right there. But that's kind of what ESPN does with all of their social media accounts now, whether it's the ESPN account or the SportsCenter account. You can thank Omar for that. Basically, they just repost a bunch of clips. It's not as fun as it used to be. So thank you for watching, and seriously, if you have a story about SportsNation, comment it down below. I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this show, especially during its peak from 2009 to 2012. It was a really short run when you look at it now, but it was so much fun back in the day, and it felt like we finally had a show on national TV that kind of represented the social media, late millennial, Gen Z audience. So that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll be posting more videos like this in the future. Peace.